But I just want all of you to understand, your president and your first lady were in your shoes not that long ago. We didn't come from wealthy families. The only reason that we were able to achieve what we were able to achieve was because we got a great education. That's the only reason. And we could not have done that unless we lived in a country that made a commitment to opening up opportunity to all people.
The president today in Michigan announcing plans to incentivize colleges to keep tuition rates low. Tuition, student loan reform, these are not the kinds of knockout fight, red versus blue issues that Sunday shows love to prognosticate about or that the Beltway media love to cover like their boxing matches. Talking about making college less insanely expensive. It's the kind of thing that the political class doesn't much notice. But if progress could be made on that, it would be a huge deal for millions and millions of American families and millions of American futures. On another potentially huge deal for American families and American futures, the president really did pick a very big fight today, and he picked it with Wall Street. That story is next. You will probably want a seatbelt for this. Some good news today. Good-ish news, at least. Look, this chart was posted today on our blog by the great and good Steve Bannon, who now blogs here. Steve's arrival as the latest addition to the Rachel Maddow Show staff is my own personal Christmas in January. It's very, very exciting. But as you can see from Steve Bannon's chart here, the good news, the economy is growing a little. We are on the positive side of zero. That's what that last bar on the right means. Back that part, at the end of 2008, start of 2009, that's when Wall Street blew up. And it seriously seemed like the world might too. It was about that time, 3 years ago, January 2009, as the wave of that economic disaster was crashing down on us, that Congresswoman Marcy Kaptur of Ohio got up on the floor of Congress and said something that will be in the history books forever. When the story is written of how America survived the worst economic disaster to befall us since the Great Depression, what Marcy Kaptur said in Congress that January 15th, 2009, will be part of the history as it is told.
So why should any American citizen be kicked out of their homes in this cold weather in Ohio? It's going to be 10, 20 below zero. Don't leave your home. Because you know what? When those companies say they have your mortgage, unless you have a lawyer that can put his finger or her finger on that mortgage, you don't have that mortgage. And you're going to find they can't find the paper up there on Wall Street. So I say to the American people, you'll be squatters in your own homes. Don't you leave. In Ohio and Michigan and Indiana and Illinois and all these other places where our people are being treated like chattel. And this Congress is stymied.
Stay in your homes. Don't you leave. Make the bastards at the banks drag you out by the heels. I mean, what Marcy Kaptur was saying that day was in part pure catharsis, right? But she was also making a quite sophisticated legal argument. They're not going to be able to find the paper down there on Wall Street. She was making that argument years ahead of almost everybody else in Washington.
When those companies say they have your mortgage, unless you have a lawyer that can put his finger or her finger on that mortgage, you don't have that mortgage. And you're going to find they can't find the paper up there on Wall Street.
Marcy Kaptur, it turns out, was right. In order to create their personal gargantuloid fortunes from trading other people's houses, Wall Street first had to devise a way to bundle zillions of mortgages together so they could bet on them and buy them and sell them in bulk. One house, that's a deal between you and your bank that can take months to finish up. 10,000 houses, that's something Wall Street can flip in a New York instant. But when Wall Street did that, when they created those bundles, they broke the link between your one house and the bank you borrowed money from to buy that house. And it turns out the implications of that one simple little fact are astounding. In January 2011, 2 years after Marcy Kaptur's speech that we just played, the Massachusetts Supreme Court ruled that the banks had no right to foreclose on 2 homes. The court decided those loans had been shuffled around so many times among so many investors that nobody knew who had the right to kick the homeowners out if they stopped paying. Financial blogger Felix Salmon looked at the case and wrote, quote, anybody who was foreclosed on in Massachusetts should now be phoning up their lawyer and trying to figure out if the foreclosure was illegal. If it was, then the borrower should be able to get their deed and their home back from the bank. So Marcy Kaptur was right 3 years ago. They can't take your house. If you look around, you'll see cases like the one in Massachusetts popping up everywhere. This month in Nevada, the state Supreme Court considering the case of Andrew and Loretta Davis, who say their mortgage, too, does not legally belong to the bank that's trying to kick them out of that house. If they win, thousands of Nevada families will have reason to ask whether the banks had any right to kick them to the curb, too. And while we just got another sign that Marcy Kaptur was right, this time it came from a different place. After years of federal prosecutors schnorfeling around Wall Street trying to find some way to assign blame for the Wall Street disaster that ate the whole country's economy, President Obama announced this week that he is ready to look at what Wall Street did to Main Street as a potential crime.
And tonight I'm asking my Attorney General to create a special unit of federal prosecutors and leading state attorney general to expand our investigations into the abuse of lending and packaging of risky mortgages that led to the housing crisis. This new unit will hold accountable those who broke the law, speed assistance to homeowners, and help turn the page on an era of recklessness that hurt so many Americans.
Today, Attorney General Eric Holder announced that he has a working group ready to go forward to do what the president is asking, to sort through what Wall Street did in betting on average Americans' homes, and to put the bankers on trial wherever the evidence warrants prosecution. We are now almost 3 years removed from Marcy Kaptur's plea to families to have confidence that the law will protect them, even as the banks come to get them. A scene like this one, a foreclosed home, the family who used to live here gone God knows where. A scene like this is definitely tragic. It can be enraging. But is this also a crime scene, like a mugging or an assault? Could this also be a crime?